And welcome to today's lesson, CSS list. So, what is a list in general? So, a list is a way of presenting information in a well-formed and semantic way. And we talked about that in our HTML list class. So, if you haven't watched that video, you can go and check that. But we are going to be building on top of that, and it's not a prerequisite to this lesson, so you can just skip that. Okay, so like I said, a list is a way of presenting information. There are two types of lists. The first type is the unordered list, and this unordered list is it's a way of presenting the information using bullets, right? And we have various types of bullets that you can use that we'll be looking at. But basically, this is how the list is gonna show, right? So it's gonna be the information that you want to present in bullets, right? So burger, ice cream, coconut, and then we have pen, crayon, and eraser, all bulleted. So that is the unordered list. Then the second type, and before that, this is the way we represent on other lists is by using the UL tag on other lists. And we are going to be looking at that once we get into the code. Okay. And then we have the ordered list, which is a list that we mark using numbers and letters to show some kind of order, right, in the list. So this is an example, right? So you have this is a list with numbers and a list with letters, right? And you can see the order in them. So that's the two type of lists that we have, and we're going to be looking at all of those and how we are going to be using the CSS list property to make some changes to these. So what the CSS list property allow is, and we are going to be looking at each of these, is one, to set a different list marker for ordered list. So if you wanted to use something different for this ordered list instead of 1, 2, 3, ABC, how do we do that, right? And to set something different, a marker different from these markers, how do we go about doing it? If we wanted to use an image as a list marker, how do we do it? And if we wanted to add a background color to the list, how do we do it? And so we're just going to go right into the code and look at each of these. Before we do that, this is the tag, the UL tag for unordered list, and this is the tag for ordered list. So guys, I already have an HTML with the unordered list already coded in here, and I haven't put any styling in there yet, right? So I don't want to go over this HTML because I already covered it in my HTML list class. So if you don't know how we wrote this, you can just go and check that training out, right? But I'm just gonna explain what I have here. So I have my P paragraph tag saying on other list, and I have my UL, which is the on other list tag. And in this on other list, I have each list has the li opening and closing tag, right? We define every list element. So each list element has the li opening and closing tag. So that's why we have burger, ice cream, and coconut, as you can see. By default, it has this round marker here, right? So if I just have this, it's gonna give me the round marker. So we are gonna style this, and whilst we are here, let me uncomment this out. So this is the ordered list, right? And this is the list that has order to it. So I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, January, February, March, as we have defined. So the next thing that we are gonna do is we are gonna style these list items, right? And we're gonna use the list style type to do that. So in order to be able to target each of these elements, the first thing I want to do is to add class uh, names to each of these UL tags so that I can call it and specify which of the class names that I want to style. So the first one, I'm just gonna give it a class called A, right? And then the second one, I give it a class and I'm gonna call this B. And then I'm gonna call this class, which is an ordered list. I'm gonna call it C. And then I'm gonna call this very last one, you guessed it, D. Great. So now let's style these. In order to style these, I'm gonna go into my style, and then I have to determine which of my classes I want to style. So I want to style my UL, which is the UL, but which of them? The A one first, right? So that's how I target my style element. So what I want to do here is I'm gonna style the list style type, right? And as you can see, if I go back just a little bit, list style type, right? And which of the types do I want? I'm trying to figure it out right now. Okay, so I have the circle, which is not what I want right now. I want the circle. Let's choose circle so we see how that looks like. So if I just refresh this, you can see that it gave me the circle marker, right? So this is the circle marker, right? Let's see if we can change this up. Right, so the options that I can choose from is the disk. So just see the disk is the default. So by default, the marker is always going to be the disk, right? So if you want to change it to circle, all you have to do is choose circle, right? And then maybe let's change that for the this second list right here. So it's also gonna be on other lists, UL, but this time it's for the B class. And I'm gonna use the same list style type. And this time I am gonna choose the square. Okay, so you can see right here, it is now the square type. Next thing I'm gonna do is I am going to change the marker, the default marker for my ordered list. So same procedure. I have my ol.c, which is targeting my C class, and the same list type style type, but this time I'm gonna use upper. And if I just show you guys, we have the options that I can use, but I'm gonna be using my upper Roman type. So just gonna say upper Roman. Okay. When I refresh this, you can see that it gave me my upper Roman numerals I, and I, right? So that is how you can change this. You can also, and maybe let's do that on the last list. Let's target it ol.d, and this time, same thing. I'm gonna do the lower alpha, lower and alpha. Great. So now I'm expecting alpha numerals in lower case. Right. So as you can see, some of the values are meant for ordered list and some are meant for unordered list. It doesn't prevent you, but you have to know which of the values, like the upper Roman, lower alpha are for ordered list, circle and square are for unordered list. But for example, if I just change the square right here and use lower alpha, just like that, it's not going to stop you from doing it, and you would see it changed, but you've used it for the wrong type of list. So just be mindful and use the right one. Okay, so I still have it on my square as it's supposed to be. The next thing we want to look at is using the an image as the list item marker. And to do that, we have to use the list style image. So I'm just gonna do that here. List style image property. Okay. And in here, you have to use the URL and then you have to point it to the image that you want to use as your marker, right? So I already have a check.png image, right? I already have a check.png image, which is this image that I want to use. And so that is what I put in my URL, right? So, and just so we can see it, I'm going to comment this out. And then if I refresh this, you can see that the image is now the marker. We can also set up the position of the markers. And to do that, we use the list style position property, right? And generally we have two types, inside and outside. If we use the inside, it means that the bullets, the bullet points will be inside the list item. And if you use the outside, it's going to be outside the list item. And we can look at an example right now. So I am going to add that property in here. I'm going to say list style position. Okay. And I'm going to set it to inside first. And then we're going to take a look at the, so this is the C part. So you can see it's inside. So you can picture it as uh like a container, right? And when it's inside, it's like the markers will be inside the container. And when it's outside, it's going to be out of the container, right? So if I just change this to outside, we can see the difference. Right. So you can see that the container shifted, and you can see that the items, the markers, which is the I, and I, are outside this container, which holds the values for your list items. Right. So that is the list item position uh, property. Right. Or we can also remove the default settings on a list. Uh, so for every given list, and let's take the first list. There is a marker, right? And then that is the list style type, right? It's gonna be a circle, right? In this case, which is the first list. And then it has default margins and paddings. So if we wanted to remove the default settings on a list, the first thing that we have to do, and I'm gonna do it on our first list, is we have to set the list style type to none, meaning we don't want any markers, right? And then we have to set the margin to 0, and then we have to set the padding to 0. Okay, and I'm gonna comment this out, right? And so when I refresh this, we don't It just kind of like removes all the default settings from our list, right? So what if we wanted a shorthand for our list uh, values, right? Okay, so to do that, and I'm gonna do that for our D list, right? So to do that, we use the list style property, right? And we are gonna set this up in one line. So I want the square, right? And then I want inside, which is the position, and then I want URL, and then I'm gonna put in here check.png. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna comment this out. And when I refresh this, we have the uh the style in one line, and you can see that it shifted a little bit the markers because we chose inside, and so you can picture this as a box, and so it's inside the box, right? And if we had chosen outside, which is the default outside, and I refresh this, you can see it's the markers are now outside the box. So just to buttress, when you are using the shorthand property, right, the the values are your list style type, your list style position, and then finally your list style image property. So that is the order your value should go. So going forward, let's now try to style with colors, right? So we can add colors to make them look more interesting, right? Make them look nicer, and add some design and some personality to your list. Okay, so if we anytime you add a style to say your OL or UL tag, the style affects the entire list, right? Whilst if you add any of the properties to just the list item, which is the LI, your LL tags, right, it's gonna affect only the individual list items. So let's take a look. So let's add some background to this. So I'm gonna put background color. Sorry, just background. Um, okay. So when I refresh this, now the background for this list is now pink. Right. So that is how to add background color. If you wanted to add some padding to this, we could do that. Let's add some extra padding. So let's say we want a 20 pixel padding, right? So now we've added some padding to this list. So you can see that the list itself has some padding, right? So, and this is for the ordered list. If we wanted to affect the li or the list element itself, we can add one more line and say li for, let's say, order list li, and in here I'm gonna put here maybe background. I'm gonna put the background here to be okay. So now the background for just the list items is now light gray, correct. And I can also add padding to this, say 5 pixels. Okay, so you can see how we are now affecting the styling of our list, right? So the next thing that we may want to add will be a margin, right? So let's add a little bit of a margin here, say 5 pixels. Great. So we have margins between our list items, as you can see. So I don't want to do a lot of styling here, but you can see how we can style our list to match what we really want. And I didn't want to go above our 10 minutes. It's already 20 minutes, so I'm just going to stop here and we'll continue in the next lesson. Thank you and bye.